The next panel, Building Cyber Resilience in an Era of Geopolitical Turmoil, is organized in partnership with our friends from the Aspen Institute US. I welcome on stage Jeff Green, Senior Director of Cybersecurity Programs, the Aspen Institute US.
I hope everyone just heard we renamed the panel the Scary Panel a minute ago. So we'll try to live up to that. So our panelists can join us. I like the focus actually moving back from the scary in the title about resilience. To me, that is one of the most important aspects of cybersecurity. Cybersecurity, or frankly, cyber insecurity, is something that every nation has to live with. It is at the core of national and economic security today. And to me, that's why resilience is so important, and that'll be part of our conversation today. And by that, I mean digital resilience as well as physical resilience, societal resilience. We need to have the capacity to run our businesses, our critical infrastructure, our lives on our worst digital day. And societies that have built that in are going to do the best in a society of happy AI, scary AI, or good or bad cybersecurity. So we have a great panel to discuss this today. We're joined online as well. No, do we have our online guest? Yes, wow. Tapio, thank you. So we're going to go down. Everyone's going to introduce themselves, give a brief intro, other thoughts. Why don't we start, Tapio, with you online? We'll check the connection first thing.
Sure. Thank you so much. Can you hear me well?
We got you.
Great. So my name is Tapio Pyysala. I'm the head of international relations at the European Center of Excellence for Countering Hybrid Threats, or hybrid COE in brief. Although we are a COE, we're not the NATO COE. We are actually an international organization based in Helsinki and open to all EU and NATO member states, as well as the institutions themselves. Our aim is to build capacities of our participants for countering hybrid threats. We're very much focused on cyber threats, but only those which are part of hybrid actors' toolboxes. I know it sounds a little bit academic, but basically we consider hybrid threats as coordinated and synchronized actions with a strategic intent, and not all cyber threats fall into that category. So this is going to be my perspective in this discussion as well. But coming back to the threat itself, we increasingly see hybrid threats attacking our societies, attacking our basic values, principles including democracy, rule of law, human rights, individual freedoms. Democratic states are an easy target, and that's because we can't use the same tools and means to defend ourselves. It would basically just undermine the very same principles we work so hard to defend. And therefore, we have to build resilience and deterrence to counter these threats. And that's why I'm so happy to join this panel, and I'm looking forward to a great discussion. And so sorry I can't be there in person. I would love to. Thanks.
Great. Thanks. Marcin?
Thank you. My name is Marcin Krasuski. I'm a head of public policy for Central and Eastern Europe for Google Cloud. And I'm very happy to be here, to be invited to this tremendous panel and talking about cybersecurity. So in two sentences, what I think are the main biggest challenge. One is, I think, is geopolitics, because cybersecurity is a team sport, and we see not only threat actors very close to us, an actual war happening next to the borders of Europe, first time in at least my lifetime. And then we have, I guess, diverging views among the transatlantic relations community, and I think this is something to be addressed as well. And then the second big topic that I would like to touch upon is technology, and how technology shifts and how the methods of attack change and different technologies change, especially including AI. So I'm looking forward to discussing this.
Okay, thank you. Romeo.
Hi, Romeo Milea. I'm from Vodafone, Romania. I'm Director of Network Development in Romania. I'm representing an industry which provides communication services for society and for authorities. Our experience that we have in Europe, in 20 countries and some other countries around the world, where we have partnership, is that more and more, moving to digitalization, more and more the infrastructure, communication infrastructure is more a critical asset for a country. Therefore, the cybersecurity and the resilience of an infrastructure, it's very important. And I think this is one of my main goal for today, to express how the cybersecurity will be tackled in the future together with authorities as well, because we cannot stay in isolation, just the private sector, and how we can compete in the future in this space. Thank you.
Thank you. Ferdinand.
Yeah, one of my main goals for today is to scare all of you about our hybrid threats. Just to say at the beginning, I'm Ferdinand Geringer from the Konrad Adenauer Foundation. It's a political think tank in Germany, and I'm advising politicians in cybersecurity, hybrid threats, critical infrastructure. I'm very happy to be here. Thanks for the invitation. And when we talk about hybrid threats, I think that they are dangerous for states, for the society, when they are cumulative and overlapping. And what is the answer? How can we answer hybrid threats with resilience, with redundancy, with deterrence? And resilience especially requires processes, roles, responsibilities for all the actors. And just to say, when we talk about the cyberspace, the information space, and in general about hybrid threats, that we are all actors in this area, in this space. And therefore, we need to find a solution, and I hope that we can discuss a little bit in the upcoming minutes some of these solutions within the private sector, with the society, but also with the state actors. Looking forward to the discussion.
Okay. Thank you. And Gabriel.
Hello, I'm Gabriel Dinu. I'm the Deputy Director of the National Directorate for Cybersecurity. I am leading the regulation and the control pillar of the Directorate. So, as you know, or if you don't, I will tell you right now, the Directorate is the national authority on cybersecurity for the civilian cyberspace. And in this, from this standpoint, we have a very broad range of functions and responsibilities that we need to address, and in order to increase the cybersecurity and cyber resilience of the Romanian cyberspace. What I will be talking today, of course, will be from the regulation standpoint, which is my tool that I'm using. And I believe that there are, at this point, a couple of things that are mandatory from the point of view of European regulation to implement, and also they are, in my opinion, necessary to do in order to increase the resilience of the infrastructure and the capability of the Romanian society to be able to react and to respond to cyber threats. Because as it's been said by my co-panelists, I believe that at this point, the cybersecurity is probably one of the most important tools in asymmetric conflicts and in the hybrid threat. So it's become very important for the society, and it's very important for us to identify the solutions to have better regulation in order to confront it.
Great. Thank you. So we will leave some time for questions at the end if folks have questions. There was a microphone over here before. I may be staring into it through the lights, but we will leave, if folks have questions, hold them to the end, and we will try to get you in. I want to start, Marcin, you talked about diverging viewpoints, I think was your words, in geopolitical relations in cybersecurity. I wonder if you can dig into that, what your thoughts are, what you mean, and who are the different parties, and if you're comfortable, as at least in the U.S., we look to an election in 2024, and I think something like, I forgot the number, but it is 3 billion or more people will be going to the polls in 2024 around the world. How that plays into the ability to have this team sport, as we all say, in cybersecurity.
So I guess we all know who are the bad actors on the scene right now. Last month we had elections, general elections in Poland, my native country, and we were teaming up with the National Electoral Committee to safeguard the election process. And I have to tell you that within 48 hours before the elections, we saw 7,000 attacks on the DDoS attacks, distributed denial attacks on the Electoral Commission, all of them coming from Belarus or Russia. So this is very local context, but I think this is applicable to wider transatlantic community. Then, so when the war in Ukraine broke out, we saw, I think, that both the US and Europe came together because to face this emerging threat. But now we see that, on the both sides of the Atlantic, that this relationship maybe got a bit sour, I would say. We see in the US one party which is increasingly isolationist. There is a potential of the next US president who can completely reverse its course when it comes to cooperation with NATO, for example, or with European institutions. And in Europe, we see more and more voices raising, saying that, for example, we need to promote our own domestic solutions, providers, point of views, because of security, for example. The COVID taught us that globalization of supply chains maybe is not fortunate, and some of the things need to relocate to Europe. And now with the war in Ukraine, I think some of these voices are increasing. And there are pieces of regulations that are pointing this out, and they are aiming directly towards American hyperscalers and American companies, like, for example, EU cloud certification scheme that targets precisely very few American companies and sets out requirements, for example, to have a European headquarters. And how this affects cybersecurity. So cybersecurity is a teamwork. So we need to share information. We need to share data about threat actors, about malware, about different kinds of campaign. Because of that, we can learn from each other. We can notify each other when we see something in our networks or in other companies' networks, and by doing this, we can increase resiliency. And if we, for example, raise data localization requirements, so we are forcing companies or states to store certain data in a given country, we are preventing them somehow from this knowledge, because some of the tools that we as a global company use require using of software which could be located somewhere else and could not be, for example, the given malware cannot be compared with a sample which lies somewhere else. And this is a very concrete example how by these diverging transatlantic relations, cybersecurity can be compromised.
Well, as I recall, in literally the weeks before Russia's full-scale invasion, Ukraine moved a significant amount of data and operations outside of the country. I believe they may have had to change their data localization laws. Is that another example of how cybersecurity and localization can run into each other?
Yes, exactly. This is what happened. And like we have the same situation in Poland where a number of, for example, telecom companies that are legally obliged to store their user data in Poland. Now they figured that, when they see rockets flying over their data centers, that this is not a safe solution. Maybe it's good to have it then relocated somewhere else because of the safety purposes.
Yes, I will comment a little bit. So what we see actually in cybersecurity, around all our footprint, we see 5 to 6 billion attacks per year. So it's in our network, out of which 70,000 are really cybersecurity events, which we are taking care, around the world. This is very important, so we are also targeted as the main entrance in stopping or compromising the communication. Yes, we take resilience very serious and the redundancy of the network, and some of the components of the applications or cloud need to stay here or closer to the user. So some of the other components which are not critical for the business can stay outside, let's say in the private cloud and somewhere else in Europe or wherever. These are part of our design and rules, considering the worst scenario that we may have in the future. On the other hand, the Ukraine crisis shows us that the private communication is also important in dealing with the war, in getting some information from the ground, in coordinating some or stopping some attacks with some, like drones over the mobile communication. So the collaboration between the private communication sector and the authorities is very crucial during the peace, but also during the, war or difficult times.
But actually, to add one thing, I think the needs are very clear, but when we talk about the transatlantic relationship or cooperation in general in cybersecurity, there is one thing missing, and this is trust. And when we talk about these transatlantic relationships, we see kind of initiatives which are going directly in the right direction. For example, the counter-ransomware initiative, the US initially built up 2 years ago, I think, and we now have 50 member states joining these counter-ransomware initiative, but it's only for ransomware and it's only state members. What we still observe is that we couldn't find so far a solution for the lack of trust within the states in some parts of the world and the lack of trust within the private sector and the state. So what can the state offer the private sector for receiving all those very high quality information from Google, from Vodafone, from Mandiant, from Telecom, I don't know, from all the providers? What can the state really offer? We have no solution so far. We can offer them a place at the table when we are discussing about new providers, when we are really renovating our networks. But is this a very good offer for Google, for Vodafone? I'm not sure. This is a question for the state, for the governments, not solved so far. And this could be one way to raise a little bit more this trust within the private sector, the public sector. So a crucial role even in the transatlantic relationship, or when we talk about cooperation in cyberspace in general, is the relation between all these different stakeholders. And within these things, the big elephant in the room is trust.
Gabriela is the representative of us state here, and I will try to bail you out from my history in a moment too. So what can you offer Google and the others?
What can we offer? First, Ferdinand, you brought up the point that I was going to also raise, so the trust issue and insurances, mutual insurances, because what's very important to start with is the fact that at this point we have two things that are very important One of them is that the evolution of the technology has made the information very broad moving. It's circulating and it's everywhere. So this is one issue. The other, it's the issue of, as you said before, the fact that we need to protect ourselves against the threats that are being posed by the attacks against the chain of the supply chain. Yeah. So these are two very important things that are making cooperation first very important. We cannot have cybersecurity unless we cooperate with our partners. And this is one. And the other one is the need to protect our information. It is very important, our data. It is very important to find a balance between these two issues. So from the standpoint of a regulation authority, it's difficult to address this balance. What we can do is first to see what the tools are from the directives that and the regulations that we have at the European Union. And I consider that at this point it's probably the most advanced regulation system in the world, what the European Union is doing. So what we need to do is to find the best solutions to apply this to our own legislation and to our own specific issues that we have and specific architecture in each country. So it's not...
Well, I would say from the U.S. perspective, taking off my moderator's hat for a second. First, when I was in the White House, we looked at the European regulation system with envy because the U.S. Has not been able to pass anything close to it, and looking back over 15 years. But in terms of what we can offer, I was in government in the months leading up to, in the early months of the full-scale invasion. We worked very closely with the private sector. The private sector worked with us. And we, the government and the private sector, were doing things that for 15 years we had heard, not that we will not, but we cannot do this. All of a sudden, when there was an actual real threat, the amount of information and activity changed. And next week, folks want to join online, we will be having a cyber summit in New York. I will be asking my former colleagues, does that relationship still exist? Like, what have we done with that? Tapio, I wanted to follow up on, because you had defined hybrid threats and where you focus on it. Number one, any reflections on what we've said? But Marcin talked about the attacks that they saw in Poland right before the election. Does that fit your definition of hybrid threats? How do you engage on that? Any reflections back on that or on the conversation we've had?
Thank you so much, Jeff. Well, first of all, to continue the discussion, I definitely agree with Marcin. Everything has to begin with sharing situational awareness. And not only within the government, within the society, but in international cooperation. And this is where the EU and NATO can really play their part on sharing information, sharing intelligence, on data breaches. But then coming back to your other question, I would definitely define sort of undermining democratic processes, undermining elections as hybrid. Because basically the whole aim of that is strategically to undermine either democracy itself, more internationally or within a specific country. So definitely cyber attacks linked to undermining democratic processes would be very much in our scope, and we are very focused on that. We are actually building very ambitious training programs on the elections coming up in 2024, and like it was mentioned, it will be a huge election year in the transatlantic sphere. Thanks.
I want to talk a little bit about when we talk about a hybrid operation. and what it takes for a cyber operation to be successful, or does it actually take technical success? And I'll use one example to highlight this. And here I'm getting into the sociological, psychological, the society impact. In the United States, in the summer of 2021, a pipeline company, Colonial Pipeline, their business systems were crippled by ransomware. And as a result, the company chose to shut down their operational systems because they did not have confidence level that this infection would jump. And within days, there was panic on the US East Coast, runs on gas stations, and gas stations started running out of fuel. There actually was no fundamental fuel shortage. There was plenty of gasoline to reach all the gas stations, but because of fear, and I was telling the panelists before, there's this application called Gas Buddy people would use to check gas stations. Turned out that was inaccurate. So you had fear feeding inaccuracy. And one of the lessons that we took from that, beyond we need to be better at communications, is you don't actually have to succeed in order to have the end result you want. You have to create the impression. So again, I guess I'll start with you, Tapio. Like, does a hybrid effort require a technical success, or are you just trying to get the result of society in panic? Because we had gas shortages even though there was no operational reason for it.
That's a very good question. I think basically in our view, I would say that the sort of end goal of hybrid threats or hybrid attacks is not typically for example, creating issues in energy security. It's more about sort of creating insecurity, instability, undermining trust in the society. So in that sense, I would definitely say that the target may not be, for example, in this case, undermining oil production or oil supply. It's rather sort of people's trust in the system, people's trust in the supply chain in this case, and yeah, certainly this is something that we consider hybrid as well. And
Marci, were any of the attacks you talked about attacking the trust in the election system?
What I mentioned was like DDoS attacks. So we had like over 7,000. Very sophisticated, that require a lot of knowledge on the software and the different loopholes and breaches. But these are not the majority. But the majority of attacks that we see are attacks that are coming from fake email accounts, for example, that someone is actually using someone's identity on social media that is trying to get a trust in a certain institution, and sends someone at the ministry or at a critical infrastructure company a friend request on one of the social networks, and then by making friends with such a person, they can have an access to the organization, exchange an attachment, and then voila. Suddenly you can have an external actor in your systems. So I think these are the majority of attacks. And as I said in my initial reaction, now within an eye, new completely technology, there will be new ways of creating these fake identities, fake content, and we have to learn how to cope with that. And this is not all doomsday scenario that AI will create only fake news or fake spoofing campaigns, because we have solutions to that. And I represent Google, and if you are using our services, you can, for example, see that I think we have the best engine for blocking spam. And these are all AI-based. So we are basically having a huge library of malicious content, of spam, and if someone sends like that, we can easily compare, like if it does look like spam, and it's automatically blocked by AI. So there are threats coming from the expansion of technology, but I feel that there are ways to mitigate these threats as well.
So I want to advertise this afternoon, there will be a panel talking about misinformation. They will solve that problem later today. We don't have enough time to fix that one.
Just to add one thing to the digital influence and foreign interference in the elections, because the panel is named Cyber Resilience, and when we talk especially about these influences, we have to talk about the democratic resilience of a society, and these include 3 points. This is the public awareness, and this is kind of what we're trying to do when we discuss over here. But this is also the social polarization, and therefore we saw this in Poland, we will see this in the US, maybe we see this in the upcoming election, the European Parliament next year. So the social polarization is the second point, and the third point is our technical vulnerability. So these are the 3 points when we talk about this resilience. And I think in all of these points we can influence, and we can offer our solutions, technical solutions from the state, from the private sector, but also from the society, to raise these awareness and to create this resilience when we talk about. For example, you brought up the colonial pipeline thing. It's resilience. It's a flexible and fast reaction of the state, which is really necessary in this regard. And what does that mean, resilience? So you need clearly communication, the legislation, exercises with your society, with all the actors, the preparedness of all of them, and then you can counter such hybrid threats.
Okay, so I would like to pick up the subject and give a few of my thoughts on this issue. So you were talking earlier about awareness. Awareness is very good, and we did a lot of awareness. Everybody's perceiving the importance of cybersecurity and the impact of that cyber attack can have. But I believe that awareness may be a double-edged sword, because we as an authority, many of the operators have the obligations to report cybersecurity incidents to us. And we've seen many incidents. If you take some of them and make them public and insist on them, they can look very scary, and they can up the narrative of the attackers and help them, because they can produce an impact on in the mind of the citizen, in the society. But in reality, the impact is not that great. It's something that is actually manageable, or maybe there were safety measures in place that made it not to have such an immediate or long-lasting effect. So it is very important to be very careful when we disseminate the information. It's important to communicate with the society, to give them the needed information, the information that they need to have, but in a way that is not too scary, that doesn't make spirits go to. Because, for instance, we were talking about the Ukraine conflict. In this context, we had a lot of DDoS attacks against government infrastructure and companies and stuff like that. A DDoS attack, when you're talking about some website, it isn't such a powerful tool in terms of cyber attack. It's just a website, after all. But to take into consideration that this website can represent a public authority, And what this DDoS is doing is undermining the image of this authority. So what we need to do is to make the public aware that, okay, these things can happen. They don't mean that we are not strong enough to counteract a cyber attack with, the impact that the attack on the Colonial Pipeline could have had. And was thought by the public to have, and caused that chain of reaction, So that's my take on this.
May I challenge you a bit on this? Because I think that, of course, cyber attacks are a huge reputational risk for companies, and this is true. But first of all, I would distinguish between awareness of individuals, on which basically cybersecurity depends, and how they are treating themselves, how they are behaving themselves online. Do they open, I don't know, emails from unknown senders? Are they opening attachments? Are they clicking on links? This is something, that kind of knowledge I think is crucial. When it comes to corporate or organization actors, here I understand the risks, but here as well, I think there is a benefit in sharing information about what happened, because that's how we can learn. This is at least what we did. When Google was attacked, there was a famous case in, I think, in 2009, when we were attacked by North Korea, and for a while, this search site was not working. And we actually disclosed this publicly so that people can learn and we can all increase resilience in the future. And when it comes to DDoS attacks, I understand that these are not the most sophisticated attacks, but they can be harmful as well. If a web page of a bank is compromised and you suddenly cannot access your money, I think that makes a problem. There was a case of Estonia a few years back when they were moving the statue of the fallen Soviet soldier.
2007, yeah.
The whole financial system of Estonia was compromised because of DDoS attack, basically.
I would, can I just jump in? I would say
just
that how we cover this, or how the media covers it, is essential. Soon after I left government, there was a report of Russians attacking a U.S. energy company. It was actually Russian criminal gangs, or what appeared to be, with the DDoS against the website of a trade association. But the media picked this up, and there was a couple hours of how will the U.S. react to an attack on our critical infrastructure. And so I think you both may, I mean, it's important for that information to be out there, but we have to explain it accurately so people understand it. So let me give back to my panelists.
Exactly, that's what I wanted to say, that being precisely in the communication in this regard. So if you are precise in explaining DDoS attack in this regard, it has no impact and no effect at all. So that's building up as well these resilience where we are talking about. But another thing is, I'm slightly disagreeing to say we have to share only the information and inform like the society and raising this awareness. It's more, I would go deeper and say we have to change the behavior. And this is another thing. I mean, I can inform all of you about the threats, but really we are like the human being, we are with routines and stuff, so we are acting as always, consuming very fast our emails, all of you over here. So how can we change the behavior of all of us that this PDF attachment case will not occur? This is the thing of awareness, and not only the information that there is some phishing mail from Amazon, from PayPal, or whatever out there. That's not enough.
So, again, from the standpoint of an authority, for us, it was and it is very important to have awareness because we need funding, we need support, we need companies, and we need the government officials to understand the need to take measures and to increase the level of cybersecurity and cyber resilience. We need to also awareness in order to help individuals learn about cyber hygiene and how to protect themselves on the internet. We need them to perceive the threat. We need them to understand the need to better themselves, to understand better what is cybersecurity and what they should do. But it's a balance that we need to keep, and how much information we share, how do we share it, when do we share it, this is very important in order to have a good communication, in order not to scare people when they shouldn't be scared.
Yeah.
And as you said, Ferdinand, it's true. This is very important.
Romeo, from a
Yeah.
perspective of, people notice if your network is impacted. On the communication point, how much thought do you give how and whether to communicate so people have usable information?
Yes, I think you touch great topics like trust. So the trust is very important, and I think, let me say, you are easily understand a threat or a problem when you are facing, you know. So now what we saw in the industry is that the people don't want to understand or to take a look to the cybersecurity risk for themselves. They are acting in the business as usual environment, considering then the others will take care, is not their main focus. So actually, all the efforts to protect the networks and the applications and everything, let's say, we don't have the right, let's say, awareness from the customers on this area. On the other hand, what I saw in the last 2 years is that, at least here in Romania, we have started a good collaborations between the industry in the cybersecurity space and the authorities. I will say it was triggered by some legislations in tackling the high-risk vendors, but not only. And with this occasion, we start to socialize with the authorities, explaining where we are in terms of market, what kind of service we provide to society. Examples like the network is down, your bank account is not anymore in your pocket. And not only this, so I will say we have a good collaboration, starting to understand and to collaborate not only in high-risk vendor and supply chain, but also in some tools and applications and process and procedures and legislations, by the way, across Europe as well, to have a common ground for what we want to build in the future as a security. Because if I add €1 to a subscriber saying that I will protect your phone against, I don't know what kind of vulnerability, the customer will not pay, you know. So this is the area. He will pay only if he is really affected and then understand. And then we'll say, I lost 1 million, now €1 makes sense, you know. It's like in your house. Romania, it's in an area with earthquakes. But the last big earthquakes was, I don't know, 20 years ago or something like this. So during 20 years, we lost our, let's say, ability to understand what means an earthquake. So the appetite of the customers to protect their house, it's almost zero. So that's why you have a regulation. You are forced somehow to protect your house. Yeah. If will happen an earthquake, then everybody will understand, and they will go to the banks and to protect their houses. So it's the same in cybersecurity.
Yeah, the market has never driven cybersecurity protections. Tapio, I want to flip back to hybrid and geopolitical and ask you, do you think that we can deter these type of actions? You know, the most Western countries were pretty vocal that they thought the Russians would engage in more active cyber operations outside of Ukraine. Certainly they've done a lot inside Ukraine, but despite some pretty heavy sanctions, we haven't seen a lot of attacks outside of Ukraine. Is there a lesson from that on deterring these type of hybrid activities, or are they too wrapped into a nation's war plans?
Thank you, Jeff. I would certainly say that we can, and I'd like to make the sort of classic split between deterrence by denial and deterrence by punishment. Because what we've been talking about is building resilience, and basically building resilience, or at least the part that the attacker sees of that resilience, also builds deterrence, because basically then the attacker will know that the attack won't have the intended impact. So basically, I'd say that all different ways of building resilience also builds deterrence by denial. But then we also need deterrence by punishment. And in those cases of attacks that we can detect and attribute to a specific actor, I think we should certainly look at different types of punishments, including by diplomatic means, political means, economic means, including sanctions, so on, to make sure that there actually is some kind of punishment for the act. And making that punishment to someone builds deterrence against other attacks, of course, as well.
Yep. Let me quickly go to the audience while we have a few minutes, see if there are any questions. Is there? Yes, sir. It's hidden behind the light for us up here.
That's a form of hybrid, right?
Yeah.
So thank you very much for all the insightful conversation today. But what I think we're doing, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think that we're concentrating too much on the supply side of security, of cybersecurity, whereas we're not discussing that much the demand side. We're not discussing that much how we should make the consumer, right, the public, the population out there, how should we make them more aware of these risks? And at the same time, in doing so, how should we sort of equalize the cost benefit for them? Because a lot of people, and mind you, we're discussing people who are not all of them in the large urban areas. Some of them are in rural, some of them are in minor rural, where at least in this half of Europe, not all of them do have bank accounts or using a card, so that you can scare them. You need to be protected in order not to lose your money. But we're also discussing how should you protect your Facebook account.
Yeah,
and my question is, sorry for being this long, my question is, do you think of mechanisms, all of your business and professionals in the field, do you think of mechanisms of translating to these regular people the need of security, the need of cybersecurity? Thank you.
Can I want to pick up, because Romeo, you talked about people won't spend the €1. Ferdinand, you talked a little bit about the regulation and the whole scaring people, and I was hoping to end with something hopeful, and thank you for the opportunity. I'm curious if you could take that, but also, is it really, I think most people are scared now. Most people, I worry, their reaction is there's nothing I can do. Do we need to empower people to understand that there are actually simple things that they can do, whether it's multi-factor authentication? So what are your thoughts on how we reach those people? And I would ask that it not be just, well, they need to know bad things can happen. How do we teach them that they can stop these bad things? So I will, first mic up gets to talk. So.
Okay, I can start. And I think one on the meta level, the thing is that the technology is developing always faster than our awareness in using this. So we see this with AI. So we're using AI since ages. So it's nothing new. But now we have these use cases, and we are shocked because we have never heard about ChatGPT before. But ChatGPT is not that new. So like when we talk about the technological development and how can we react to them, we always use the technology and then we discuss about the consequences. And this brings me to your point. I wouldn't agree that we are not talking about the mechanisms. We are totally discussing the mechanisms. What we are not doing so far in the right way is thinking about the different roles everybody of us is playing in this game. And I think this is missing. So when we talk, and I bring this example with the legislation. So on the European level, we have, you already mentioned it, the Cyber Resilience Act. So what is basically what we are doing there, we are forcing the manufacturers, the providers, to have a closer look on their products to see, okay, is this designed in a secure way, first of all. Then we have the NIS2 regulation. What we are seeing, okay, we have critical infrastructures. They are critical because they are very important for our societies. Let's regulate them, but not in a whole approach that we have like everything is connected in a digital way. No, we are regulating one entity. So this is like the infrastructure, when I use all the supply from the critical infrastructure? What is my use when I'm using social media? What is my role in this game? What is the role of the provider in this game? What is the telecom communication and Google? What is their role and their responsibilities? And this is a mechanism I would agree we are not thinking about. So we are just regulating the small issue things like social media with the DSA and the DMA right now, then the critical infrastructure. But this whole thing, everything is connected with different responsibilities. This is still missing, and that's the biggest lack from my point of view.
So,
Well, allow me to disagree a little bit with
Sure.
you. Yeah,
the
because-
best panels are when people disagree, so thank you.
We have, you've talked about the regulation, the NIS2, the Cyber Resilience Act. I believe that they are a handful anyway. They are a handful for us to put into place. They are great. In my opinion, they are something that needed to be done in terms of regulation, and we should transpose them as fast as possible. But it's not easy to do it. It's hard, and it takes a lot of work. And I believe they are the basis when it means to imposing cybersecurity to organizations and to products that are being put on the market, and they are very important to protect the needs of the society as a whole. But when it comes to, as the question was, how do we make the individual, the people that don't have very good knowledge of what IT is, what happens, what's their data, what happens to their data, what are the real risks, and not what they see, on the TV. It's a cyber attack. You should go and hide. Well, this is, in my opinion, and this is being done especially with the strategies and the investment in education programs. This is the most important thing. You'll probably, Martin, you'll probably talk about MFA, for example. But
Multi-factor authentication.
Yeah, and it's very important that people are, maybe forced to implement it. But when it comes to this kind of activities, what we can do as authorities, and what the organizations can do, it's as I said before, awareness campaigns. We need to address the young people, because they are probably the ones that are most involved in using the new technologies. They are the early adopters, and they can be used to help their parents, their grandparents, and the people around them that don't understand technology to understand the risks and how to protect themselves. And they should be the first target that we need to address.
Target to educate, not target for attack.
Exactly. Target for educate, target for creating awareness, target for using them in order to create the next generations of cybersecurity specialists. Right. So this is my take, my opinion on this.
Well, we have a flashing red light, so I apologize for not giving everyone a last word, but I want to thank you all for joining us, sitting through lunch, and thank the panelists, so appreciate you guys joining us. And please come back this afternoon for some great talks.